Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Alien Earth Episode 5 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. This episode was basically like them actually doing an Alien movie inside an Alien series because they did it on the spaceship, just like the Nostromo in the first Alien movie. Noah Hawley, the creator of the series, said that was specifically why he chose to direct the episode, because if anybody was going to direct his Alien movie, it would have been him, and that's the way he thought of the episode, was his Alien movie, based on Ridley Scott's first Alien movie. This is why the title of the episode was, In Space No One Can Hear You, ... because the original tagline for the first Ridley Scott Alien movie was, In Space No One Can Hear You Scream. They even released an initial teaser trailer for the series called an homage trailer in the style of the original teaser for the Ridley Scott Alien movie. It was all about the reveal of the egg, as in the omelet, as they called it during this Alien Earth series, the couple of eggs. This episode was all about the reveal of what happened during that missing time gap on the Maginot to explain how they wound up crashing on Earth. And as we saw during all those montages in episode 1, it goes absolutely wild. Since Morrow is the Captain Hook of this whole Peter Pan metaphor that they've been laying on all the episodes, you can also think of the Maginot as his Jolly Roger from the Peter Pan story. This time, they start the episode with a montage of previous scenes from episode 1, when we saw them talking around the breakfast table, then going back into cryo a few months from Earth and jump forward in time to 17 days before they reach Earth, which is where most of the episode takes place. There are a couple more time jumps to catch them up with the end of episode 1 as they actually do crash to Earth, though. But at the start of the episode, Morrow is woken from cryo by Clem, another crew member, because a few creatures have gotten loose. We wind up learning that this is a sabotage perpetrated by Petrovich, who had not been taken over by the eyeball tentacle creature. There are a lot of theories about that early on, like maybe the eyeball tentacle creature had something to do with this. We actually learned that it was Petrovich behind everything, who was pissed off at the company because somebody that he loved, like another crew member, had died during one of their specimen retrieval missions, which they discussed during the events of episode 1, like they'd lost a lot of good crew members picking up all the different specimens. So at a certain point, he made a deal with Boy Cavalier to get him all the specimens and purposefully cause the ship to crash in Prodigy territory in those towers where we saw it at the end of episode 1. So there are a lot of theories that this was all a plant, like this was all on purpose. It was, but not exactly the reason that a lot of people had theorized. And it was all because Petrovich just really hated Weyland Yutani and wanted to stick it to them. Also really wanted to get rich too, because Boy Cavalier promised to make him one of the richest people on the planet. Also using that to talk a little bit about his process for putting minds in other synthetic bodies. Like, you can do that, right? Which he says at the time, we can almost do it, because at the time they were brokering that deal, they had not performed the successful trial with Wendy yet, so it was still a theoretical process. And even then, they still don't know if they can do it with adults, only with children currently. So part of the idea is that Boy Cavalier was just kind of hand-waving like, maybe we can put you in a new body. That's also still one of the big questions of the series, where they basically explained in a previous episode, they're trying to determine if the process was successful or they're just a bunch of AIs running around in bodies thinking that they're humans. That's one of the big theses of the actual series. We'll see if they answer the question by the end or if they push that to season 2. Mar then learns that the captain and Bronski have already gotten got by facehuggers. There's been a fire on the ship they put down, but all hell has started breaking loose. Like, things have started to become more and more chaotic, and they're only getting worse through the rest of the episode.
Our lives are about to get a lot worse.
Clem then reveals he's a complete degenerate, that Bronski and Zaveri were hooking up, and he recorded some of it if Morrow wants to see, which he does wind up looking at later, even though he doesn't enjoy it the way that Clem sounds like he enjoyed it. Jabuzo and Rahim, the science officer, and the ship's doctor are arguing about how to handle the disaster, deal with the creatures, because they've already had one disaster, trying to take one of the facehuggers off of the captain, inadvertently killing him because of the acid blood, running afoul of the acid blood. Essentially, what led to them getting the facehuggers on them, is that Petrovich sabotaged the ship in the right way to create the fire so that the captain or somebody would come in and get a facehugger on them by opening the tank, because Boy Cavalier basically told him to set this up. So if you remembered an earlier episode when he was admonishing Kirsch, saying that he was so far ahead, like I'm so many steps ahead of everyone, really he knew about it because of all these backhanded deals he was making with Petrovich. It wasn't that he was super smart, it was that he'd been making these deals the whole time. There were also a lot of you that clocked when he misquoted Arthur C. Clarke, thinking that that might be the show trying to let us know that he's not as smart as he lets on, that he's kind of like one of these reckless billionaires that thinks of themselves as a child genius and good at everything, when in reality, they're only good at like a couple things and terrible at everything else. So I think they're just continuing to set up that whole idea that Boy Cavalier isn't as smart as he lets on. But it just sounds like he made a deal with Petrovich to get a couple people implanted and get his hands on the other specimens too, but really it was the Xenomorphs that he wanted. Then Zaveri, as the second in command, takes control of the ship until Morrow then tries to blackmail her a little bit, and then eventually does take over when she starts to break down too, when things really get crazy at the end of the episode. They state that Weyland Yutani has company protocols for situations like what's just happened here when a crew member comes into contact with any kind of alien life. They're supposed to be placed in cryo and left for the company people back on Earth to deal with. So it sounds like Weyland Yutani was expecting something like this to happen and wants them to say to the crew member like, no, don't jettison them into space, put them in cryo so we can actually get that chest burster and the Xenomorph out of them. There are a lot of questions about the timeline, like how much did Weyland Yutani know about the Xenomorphs and when did they know it, compared to all the timeline of the Alien movies. So remember, this is meant to take place before the events of the original Alien movie by a couple of years, so the Nostromo has not found the alien eggs on LV-426 yet. But it is set a little bit after the events of the Prometheus movie, so there is a chance that Weyland Yutani knew a little bit about the Xenomorphs, but maybe not everything. It just sounds like some of the protocols they have were developed with this in mind, this very specific case. Like, oh, we know something's going to happen, they're probably going to get loose, but we still want those specimens no matter what. Morrow then calls Clem chlamydia. It sounds like either he got chlamydia at some point during the journey, or they just started calling him that because the names sound similar and they were making fun of him, like he's the kid that they pick on. They refer to the lab with a lot of the specimens as the zoo. Go check on the zoo to make sure that it's still secure. So there are a couple different containment areas. There's a bunch of stuff in containment in the larger cargo hold, like there are a couple of alien plants, for example, and other things, the eggs. Then there's a smaller containment lab we saw with the smaller cells. Then there are a couple points throughout the episode where different crew members actually foreshadowed the future, like Zaveri's correct when she says their lives are about to get a lot worse, because we have a full-blown Xenomorph that's going to be coming around pretty soon. They're currently planning to give the captain a burial at space, jettison the body into space basically. Shmuel issues another foreshadowing, jettison both the bodies at the airlock to be safe and be done with it. Should've listened to him, he's actually right here. They start to figure out that the saboteur, who we did find out was Petrovich, sabotaged them in the perfect way. Like they knew exactly how to hit us and make us more critical, turning us into a missile, firing us to planet Earth. Eventually, once they run out of fuel, turning into more of an arrow, so they won't be able to change course either at a certain point. Ultimately is why they wind up crashing into Prodigy's territory. But that was Boy Cavalier's plan. He wanted it to go down that way.
We're gonna be okay though, right, boss?
Malachite then makes the cardinal error of a horror story, saying that they're gonna be alright, everything's gonna be fine, right? Nope, definitely not. Like, you instantly know it's gonna go bad because we saw how the series is gonna play out. Like, we knew before this how it was gonna go. But anytime anybody in a horror movie says things like that, you just know that they're gonna wind up dying. We go back to the science lab and we see a third facehugger. So remember, there's probably been encounters with other eggs when they were initially picking up the eggs to begin with. So they've already lost 3 facehuggers and we only have 1 Xenomorph, who is then summarily killed eventually by Wendy. Currently, we have the 1 chestburster that just came out at the end of episode 4 and 5 other intact eggs with facehuggers. 6 potential Xenomorphs. There's a little more arguing between Zaveri and Morrow as he's trying to take control of the ship, and she doesn't want to call the shipwide emergency to alert everybody yet. He tries to use her sexual relationship with Bronsky against her. Also reminding her company protocol is that the specimens are more important than the crew, so they explain a little bit more about his relationship with the company later in the episode and why he's so salty and why he's so loyal to the company to begin with. We wind up finding Interstellar style, Matthew McConaughey Interstellar, watching his child, his daughter, grow up while he was on this mission, but she wound up dying by the time she hit 19 relatively early during their journey, so he's been living the last 53 years on their journey, knowing that she's died, living with that guilt. So that's what's made him so salty. And we also learn that when he was a boy, the older Yutani, the grandmother who hired him initially, actually took him in off the streets and became kind of a surrogate mother to him. He wound up becoming one of the most vicious and loyal people inside their company. So all of his real loyalty was actually to the older Yutani, not to the younger Yutani. Really, it's all just meant to inform his character and why he's doing everything he's doing, like why he acts the way he is, why he seems like he's so bad. You can let me know if you sympathize with him more knowing all those things about his backstory. Like, he does a lot of terrible things, a lot of irredeemable things, but you kind of understand why he's doing them now. When he's arguing with Zaveri, he also mentions the cat. The cat's name on the ship is Rascal. Ripley's cat's name on the Nostromo was Jonesy. R.I.P. to that cat too. We found out that it run afoul of the eyeball tentacle creature by episode 2. Then as they put Bronsky in his cryo chamber with the chest burster inside him growing, Raheem's quote, "Another victory for the enemy of reason," is all about how stupid they, the crew, are smart people. The fact that he sounds like he thinks that they should jettison Bronsky into space too, like we shouldn't be bringing these parasites home. This is a real dumb decision. One of the big ideas of all Alien movies, not just this Alien TV series, but all Alien movies, is that a lot of things could be prevented if the people that were involved were not so dumb, didn't make dumb decisions. Like, a lot of the chaos of an alien movie could be prevented by not putting your face right next to a giant alien egg. All you have to do, just keep your face away from that egg. No more problems. There's a little moment with Tang, who's still obsessed with Sullivan, which he'd been reprimanded before this. They also reference it later in the episode too. I think the reason why they make Tang so despicable during all these episodes is so that his death feels like a bigger payoff. Like, you feel satisfied, like, oh, he definitely deserved to die. I'm kind of happy that this happened. The only bad thing about his death is that when the Xenomorph comes for him, you don't actually see the death itself. Like, you just see it dripping on him, and then it cuts away and you learn that he has died. Hopefully he died horribly and screaming. Morrow then goes over the security footage, seeing the explosion in the cargo bay, the captain coming to put it out with Bronsky, then falling foul at the eggs, and they use a series of flashbacks to show you it actually happening in the moment as he's watching the security cam footage after the fact. There are a couple of moments like this later in the episode too, where they'll incorporate flashbacks with them thinking about events in the past.
I need the impact room.
Smiling room.
Some of this is also meant to show you how he learned how the Xenomorphs work, because remember, he told Slightly, I need you to get somebody really close to one of these eggs. A monster's going to come out and put something inside of them. He's going to have a real bad couple of days, but then they'll be fine. All because he watched the security cam footage and saw how the alien Xenomorph eggs worked. He starts to spot the person who he eventually finds is Petrovich sabotaging, like setting up this fire so that the captain will come in with Bronsky and they will get the facehuggers. Morrow then watches the security cam footage of Zaveri and Bronsky getting it on while she mourns over his cryo chamber. The stuff that she's putting on his chamber here is just dirt from Earth, which is also called Earth. You could call it whichever you want. It's a little bit like that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse meme. There's a brief moment with Shmuel and Malachite just to let you know how smart Shmuel is, despite the fact that he seems kind of dumb, like he's actually very intelligent, but Malachite just seems like the dumbest person on the planet. While Morrow is trying to figure out Petrovich is the one behind all this, there are a lot of red flags and red herrings too. They're trying to mislead you, like, so you're thinking that it's one crew, or you think it might be the eyeball tentacle creature controlling somebody else doing all this stuff. Nope, it just wound up being somebody who was really pissed off at the company. There's a brief scene where Zaveri tries to contact Mother to get instructions on how to proceed. This scene is meant to feel similar to Dallas during the first Alien movie when he was consulting with Mother a couple different times, like, we got a problem with a crew member, something alien got attached to their face. But remember, because of the events of what happened during this series and what happened during the Prometheus movie, Weyland Yutani knows all about the Xenomorphs. So this is why during the events of the original Alien movie, Mother only seemingly cares about preserving the life of the Xenomorph. All because the company and Mother seem like they already know what's up here earlier in the timeline. No, protect the specimens at all costs, do not jettison them into space. If you don't comply, Morrow is going to take over the ship. There's a little more character building with Morrow where he flashes back to memories of his daughter when he first left Earth, and then you see the Interstellar montage where he's reading the messages from her over time because he's in cryo, so he basically watched her grow up through the messages. And eventually seeing that she died in a fire when she was 19, early on in their journey, so he's been living with the guilt of her death for over 50 years. There are a couple other details that they also reveal in her messages too. The company, as part of Morrow's contract, will pay for her schooling, which in the future, you have to imagine inflation is really bad in the future, and if college now costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can imagine it is probably like $500 million in the future. Like, that's how much it costs just to go to college. So we're actually talking about a lot of money. But a lot of his relationship with his daughter and her being dead and gone is also meant to mirror Ripley's relationship with her real-life daughter when she initially came back to Earth during the Aliens movie, like her daughter had aged up because she'd been in cryo for so long. Bronski's chest burster then emerges and things really start to get real because we have a full-grown Xenomorph on the way. They discuss the most effective means to stop it without killing it using the electrical gun so that its acid blood won't burn a hole in the ship, also setting up the twist in episode 2 where you actually see him take it out with the electrical gun again and the Spider-Man gun. We'll call it the Spider-Man gun because he webs up the alien. They start to set up the eyeball tentacle creature making its escape, watching Chibouzo in the science lab. There's also really interesting scenes with a lot of the other alien specimens too, showing you how intelligent they really are, even though seemingly you didn't realize that in episode 1. For instance, the giant alien tick creatures survive on oxygenated blood, so they won't feed on dead animals unless they're hungry enough. We also find out that they're extremely intelligent because they're able to escape their containment device, like they open their own canister, and it's able to plant its tadpoles in her drink. So the whole idea is that it had been watching her from inside that tank the same way that the eyeball tentacle creature had been watching her this whole time. There's also the really cool moment where the eyeball tentacle creature tries to alert her what's going on and bangs on the glass of its containment device, like, "Watch out, watch out!" There's a brief moment where it actually seemed like it wasn't hostile until later in the episode when it takes over Shmuel and starts attacking everybody indiscriminately. Like, first it attacks Zaveri, then it tries to attack Morrow, then it tries to attack the Xenomorph. Don't worry, we'll get to that too, because it actually confirms a couple theories about the eyeball tentacle creature in the Xenomorph. Later then it winds up being Malachite to drink the tadpoles, RIP to him eventually. He only takes a swig, so he didn't drink all of them, but the canister was still just sitting there over on the side, and we didn't see what happened to it later, but presumably it spilled in the crash, so those tadpoles probably would have died. There's still a bunch of them that were hiding out inside Clem's body though. That was also a big part of the episode too, Specimen Watch. Who has escaped? Where are all the different specimens? How many have multiplied since then? What happened to all the blood-sucking aliens that went into Clem? We haven't seen them after episode 1 and episode 2. Are they still on the loose somewhere? Lots and lots of questions, tracking all the specimens through all the episodes. Morrow then starts to do his interrogations. We find out Rahim had a problem with alcohol earlier in the journey and just really wants to go home. Malachite, who just wound up losing 1/16 of his share, which is technically a lot of money, like the way that they talk about the different shares that they divide up amongst the crew members. All because he's dead shortly after this, so it's not like he's going to need any of that money anyway. I think the idea of the company wasn't being super underhanded. Part of their contract states that if they die during the mission, then their share goes to their survivors back on Earth. Malachite didn't mention anything about having a family or anything like that, though. But the whole idea is that the alien tadpoles are growing inside him, leeching off of his blood, and that's what causing him to spit up blood and puts him in the hospital. Back in the specimens lab, Chibouzo explains that the eye, she calls it the eye, is a female. I'm assuming that she either learned it was a female or just decided to gender it a female. She doesn't know that much about the alien specimens. We spot her on the underside of the center table, but they have noted that she's escaped, but it's so crazy right now, they're like, we'll deal with this later, and later never comes. Separately, Morrow, then interrogating Tang, calls him on still being a super big pervert. Like I said, they really just wanted you to despise the Tang character, so that when the Xenomorph gets him a little while after this, his death actually feels really earned, like, oh, that was great, really loved seeing him die. He gives him the critical piece of information that turns him on to Petrovich, eventually finding him like, oh, you can actually fake these cryo signals so that it seems like you're still in your bed when you're not. There are also a couple overhead shots of the vent looking down on Tang, so it seems like the Xenomorph was just waiting there to get him. You remember one of the key points that they revealed in an earlier episode is the Xenomorphs won't really go for you unless you show a lot of fear, like they go after fear. So as long as you're fearless, you're much less likely to be killed unless you are perceived as a threat to them in some way. That's the other reason why they would try to kill you, is if you actually pose a threat to them. Then Morrow starts to get the full details on why Petrovich sabotaged the ship and why he made the deal with Boy, Cavalier, and Prodigy, because he says a bug laid eggs in his woman's eyes, meaning he was in a relationship with another crew member who was one of the ones who died on one of their retrieval missions at some point earlier in the 65 years. So essentially, he just really hated Weyland Yutani for doing this to them. In the medbay, they try to open up Malachite to save his life from the little ticks, but when they try to pick them off, it causes them to emit a green poisonous gas, and Malachite also starts to seize up violently. It seems like a similar defensive measure like the facehuggers have. Basically, trying to remove the thing causes the person to die and the person removing them to also die. Their next backup plan is to try and fix the ship just enough to divert them from crashing into Earth, then call in a cleaning team from Weyland Yutani to deal with everything.
I'm taking command of this shit.
Petrovich manages to kill Clem, so RIP to him. He was a pervert, but he didn't seem like he was that bad. Notice all the alien tick babies crawling into his body after this too. We never saw them again in episode 2, so theoretically they're on the loose still, or maybe Prodigy just bagged his body up and it's sitting somewhere in one of their warehouses. Just a whole bunch of alien tick creatures just waiting to get out. Morrow's then able to kill Petrovich, and the eyeball tentacle creature then gets out, eventually getting Shmuel. Zaveri then enjoys her last little bit of dirt from Earth as the Xenomorph comes for her, setting up the events of episode 1 where she was banging on the door to the mother room and Morrow wouldn't let her in. Notice that the Xenomorph doesn't immediately go for her because it takes her a minute to register the fear, like her brain just hasn't completely registered what's happening here, and fear is what the Xenomorph responds to. One of the other really cool things about these Xenomorph chase scenes as it's coming for her in this part of the episode is when it's actually standing here next to her, it feels much more like an actual person wearing a suit, like the original Ridley Scott Alien movie, like that was a person in a suit, not a full CG creation. Now, there are a couple scenes during this chase scene through the ship in this episode that do feel like they're CG, like they did tune it up quite a bit, but for a good part of it, it's just a person in a rubber suit. We find that Shmuel has then been taken by the eyeball tentacle creature and used his body to knock out Zaveri. Morrow, also nearby coming out of the vents, eyeball tentacle Shmuel then tries to go after him and tries to turn the Xenomorph on him. It's actually a couple cool moments here. We hear what it sounds like when the creature hears through Shmuel's human ears, like it's a slightly different pitch. And it's also confirmed super intelligent because it knows how to speak the same language as the Xenomorphs, like Wendy, calling out using Shmuel's vocal cords. That's what all the clicking sounds it makes are. It's basically telling the Xenomorph to go after Morrow. Like, no, he's the threat, kill him first. This will be interesting for later episodes, assuming that the eyeball tentacle creature will get out again. Then it tries to use Shmuel's body to literally bite the Xenomorph on its neck. Obviously, you know how this is going to end, but we actually see the eyeball tentacle creature try to overtake the Xenomorph, like jump from Shmuel's body to the Xenomorph, and it's not able to actually control it. Maybe if it had more time, but it just seems like it wasn't actually able to implant itself or like control it in the way that it wanted to. I don't know that this confirms that the Xenomorphs are eyeball tentacle creature proof, but it just means that the eyeball tentacle creature is probably going to target one of the synths or one of the hybrids at this point. Maybe Boy Cavalier, like he's also pretty high on the list to be taken by the eyeball tentacle creature next. You can let me know who you think it's going to try and capture next on its path to eventually escaping. Then the Xenomorph kills Zaveri, which we saw during the events of episode 1, almost gets Morrow until he barricades himself in that impact room and the ship finishes crashing to Earth, as he has memories of his daughter on Earth and hears the same song that he was listening to when he was also thinking of her. So the whole idea here that what was different from the events of episode 1 in that version that we saw is that you hear the song and you see his memories of his daughter. That's all he's really thinking about, all he really cares about. Then later there's a time jump after the events of episode 4 and Weyland Yutani has been able to haul him into the company, or they say that he's finally come in, like, thank you for finally coming in. And he basically explains his plan to recover the specimens with the new plan that he developed with Slightly to get somebody implanted with a chest burster. There are a couple other cool details here too, like notice they have their own private army of high-tech ninjas with really wicked-looking guns. Makes sense, we're in the distant future, they're an Asian-inspired company. We learn a little bit more about his history with the company and his history with her grandmother and why she cared about him so much and why he cared about her so much and why he's so loyal to the company. Really, it's that he's loyal to the original grandmother.
My grandmother was very fond of you, you know.
There's a brief funny moment where she actually seems like she doesn't care about his plan. Like, don't worry about it. We'll get the lawyers to fix this. It'll be fine. No big deal. But she's also fine letting him pursue his own plan too. Like, all right, let him do whatever he wants to. If he wants to go after it with this whole chestburster, facehugger plan, let him do that. Anne tells her subordinates to let him have whatever resources he needs. Basically just setting up a bigger war in the last couple of episodes. Then the song they end this episode with is Cherub Rock by Smashing Pumpkins, another big 90s song, but it also sounds like the context they're using for the song, because the song itself was actually meant to be calling out the indie rock scene in a lot of posers versus authentic people. The idea is that Morrow, in this case, is the authentic person, like he's being the real person here, whereas Yutani, like the younger Yutani now, is more of the poser. One of the big things that the series is doing in general is calling out a lot of billionaire tech bros, but Yutani is also kind of like another billionaire tech bro, it's just that she happens to be a woman. Basically, incredibly rich people who are super reckless with other people's lives and just have unlimited money. But overall, the episode was just packed with Easter eggs and references to the original Alien movie and what's happening on the series. So if there's anything else you spotted that I didn't talk about in the video, just write it below in the comments. And what I'll do is my episode 6 trailer video will post next, and my full episode 6 video will post next week after they release it. I know everyone's been wondering if we're going to see any more Predator Easter eggs inside the Alien Earth series. I don't know about Season 1 based on the way that Noah Hawley was talking about it, but there always could be a Season 2, Season 3, so there's wide open territory for them to do more Predator-based stuff inside this universe. Everybody click here for that episode 6 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other Alien Earth episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.